Emma Collins first noticed Daniel Harper on a cold October evening in Portland. The rain was steady, the sidewalks shining under streetlights, and she was coming home from a long shift at the hospital. She saw him at the entrance of their apartment, building struggling with two heavy suitcases and a box that looked like it might fall apart at any second. He looked out of place, like someone who had arrived in the wrong story. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket soaked from the rain. His hair was damp and there was a tightness in his face that made him seem older than he probably was. Not old in years, but old in weight, the kind that presses on a man's chest and doesn't let him breathe easily. Emma could have walked. Past him, she almost did. But when the box slipped from his hands and hit the ground, spilling books onto the wet pavement, her feet moved on their own. "Here," she said, bending down before he could protest. He hesitated for a second, as if accepting help was something he had forgotten how to do. Then he nodded once. "Thank you." His voice was low and careful, like he measured each word before letting it out. They carried his things up to the 4th floor together. Apartment 4B, right across from hers. "Just moved in?" she asked, keeping her tone light. "Yeah," he replied. "Needed a change." She didn't ask more. People who say they need a change usually carry a reason they're not ready to share. Inside his apartment, everything was bare. White walls, a single couch near the window, a mattress on the floor, no pictures, no warmth. It looked less like a home and more like a place someone was hiding. She set the box down on the small kitchen counter. "If you need anything," she said, pointing toward the hallway. "I'm in for a—" He looked at her then, really looked at her. Not with interest, not yet, but with surprise. "Thanks," he said again. "I'm Daniel." Emma, for the next few days, she saw him only in passing. Early mornings, late nights. He kept his head down, keys in hand, moving quickly in and out of the building. No music from his apartment, no laughter. Just silence. Emma told herself to mind her own business. She had done that once before, let herself get involved with someone who seemed broken. Her divorce had taught her that love could start warm and end cold. She wasn't looking to repeat that lesson, but one Saturday afternoon, sure to crash in the hallway, she opened her door to find Daniel kneeling on the carpet, gathering oranges that had rolled everywhere. A grocery bag had torn at the bottom. Without thinking, she knelt beside him. "These bags are useless," she said, handing him an orange. A small smile touched his mouth. Apparently, their hands brushed for a second as he took the fruit. From her. The contact was brief, but it made her strangely aware of him. Inside his apartment, she helped him put groceries away. The kitchen shelves were nearly empty. A few plates, a pan, instant coffee. "You don't cook much?" she asked. "Not lately." There was something final in his tone, like cooking belonged to a different life. That evening, Emma stood in her own kitchen, staring at the pot of chicken soup she had made for herself. She thought of his empty shelves, his quiet apartment. The way he had looked at the oranges rolling away from him, as if even small things refused to stay. Before she could change her mind, she poured half the soup into a container and walked across the hall. He opened the door after a few seconds, surprise clear on his face. "I made too much," she said, holding it out. "Thought you might want some." He stared at it like it was something rare. "You didn't have to," he said. No." He took it carefully, their fingers brushing again. "It's time." He didn't pull back so quickly. "Thank you, Emma." The way he said her name made her chest tighten. Over the next 2 weeks, small moments stitched them together. She showed him which cafe on Burnside had the best coffee. He carried her laundry basket when he saw her struggling with it. They talked about safe things, weather, work, the traffic downtown. She learned he worked remotely in software design. He learned she worked night shifts twice a week. They didn't talk about family. Not yet. One evening, she found him sitting on the stairs outside the building, staring at nothing. The sky was dark, clouds low and heavy. "You okay?" she asked. Softly, he blinked, as if returning from far away. Yeah, just thinking. She sat beside him anyway. After a long silence, he said, "Do you ever feel like you left something unfinished?" She thought about her marriage. It's the way it ended, with quiet papers signed in a lawyer's office. The words they never said. Yeah, she admitted. He nodded once, like that answer mattered. But he didn't explain. December arrived quickly. The air turned sharp. Christmas lights appeared in windows. Laughter echoed from other apartments. Emma noticed that Daniel's window stayed dark most nights, a single lamp the only glow inside. Then, one Friday night, a power went out. The entire building fell into darkness. Emma grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the hallway at the same moment Daniel did. "Looks like we're camping," she joked. He gave a faint smile. "I've got candles." They stood there awkwardly for a second before he added, "You can wait it out inside if you want." She hesitated. Her mind warned her to keep distance. But loneliness has a way of pushing people toward each other. Inside his apartment, candlelight softened everything. The room didn't look so empty anymore. Shadows danced on the walls. They sat at his small kitchen table, knees almost touching. For a while, they talked about simple things. Her worst hospital shift, his first week in Portland, the storm outside. Then the silence grew deeper. "My wife used to love winter," he said suddenly. Emma's breath caught. He had never mentioned a wife. "She said snow made the world look clean," he continued, staring at the candle flame. "Like you could start over." Emma didn't interrupt. "She died last year. Car accident. We were driving back from her parents' place. A truck lost control." His voice didn't break. It stayed steady, which somehow made it worse. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He nodded, jaw tight. "I couldn't stay in Chicago after that." Every street corner felt like her. So that was the change he needed. The bare apartment. The empty shelves. The silence. "You don't have to talk about it," Emma said gently. "I know." He looked up at her, but I wanted to. The honesty in his eyes made her heart ache. "I don't really know how to be around people anymore," he admitted. "Everyone expects you to move on, to smile again. I just didn't know how." She reached across the table without thinking and placed her hand over his. "You don't have to rush," she said. "Grief doesn't follow a schedule." Looked at their hands. "You didn't pull away. You're easy to talk to," he said quietly. "That scares me a little. Why?" "'Cause I wasn't planning to let anyone in." The lights flickered back on, sudden and bright. The moment felt fragile, like it might disappear. She stood slowly. "I should go." He walked her to the door. "Emma," he said before she could step into the hallway. She turned. "Thank you for tonight, for the soup, for not treating me like I'm broken." "You're not broken," she said. He studied her face as if memorizing it. "Could you stay longer next time?" He asked softly. The question hung between them. She had meant to be kind. Just a neighbor, just a friend, but there was something in his voice now, not desperation, not pity, need, not. Her heart beat faster, warning and inviting at the same time. "Maybe," she replied. Trying to keep her voice steady, back in her apartment, she leaned against her door, heart racing. She told herself it was just empathy. It's just two lonely people in the same building. But she couldn't forget the way he looked at her in candlelight, the way his fingers tightened slightly around hers, the way his voice changed when he said her name. Across the hall. Daniel stood in his doorway a moment longer before closing it. For the first time since he moved in, the silence inside his apartment didn't feel so heavy, and for the first time in years, Emma felt something she had promised herself she wouldn't feel again: hope. After the night of candlelight and quiet confessions, something shifted between Emma Collins and Daniel Harper. It was not loud or dramatic. It was subtle, like the slow turning of a key in a locked door. The next morning, Emma woke up thinking about the way he had said her name. She told herself it was nothing, just two neighbors growing comfortable. But when she opened her door to leave for work and saw a small paper bag hanging from her handle, her heart skipped. Inside was a fresh croissant and a short note. For the nurse who saves everyone, Daniel. She smiled before she could stop herself. From that day on, Daniel knocked on her door more often. Sometimes he had a reason. Sometimes he did not. "Do you know a good place to buy furniture?" he asked one evening. She raised an eyebrow, planning to unpack your life. "Maybe," he said, holding her gaze. They spent that Saturday walking through a furniture store downtown. He moved slowly, touching fabrics, testing chairs. She watched him choose a wooden bookshelf, a soft gray armchair, a small dining table with room for two. "For guests," she teased lightly. "For company," he corrected. When the delivery arrived, she helped him arrange everything. The apartment began to look different, warmer, less like a waiting room, and more like a home. He hung a framed photo of the Oregon coast on the wall. She brought over a green plant and placed it by the window. "It needs sunlight," she said. "So do I," he replied quietly. Their dinners together started casually. She would knock with leftovers. He would offer to cook pasta. They laughed when he burned garlic bread. They argued playfully over which movie to watch. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, reading separate books on the same couch. The air between them grew heavier, charged with something neither wanted to name too quickly. One night in January, snow fell hard outside. The world beyond the windows turned white and still. Emma had just finished a long shift and was exhausted. When she stepped into the hallway, Daniel's door opened at the same time. "You look tired," he said, concern clear in his eyes. "Long night. Come in," he said gently. "I made chili. It's not terrible." She stepped inside without hesitation. They ate at the small table he had bought. The room felt warmer than before, candles flickering softly, though the power was on. "You've changed this place," she said. "You helped," he answered. He did not look away. After dinner, they moved to the couch. An old movie played in the background, something neither of them truly watched. The snow tapped against the glass. The room felt small in a good way. Their hands brushed as she reached for the remote. This time, neither moved. Her pulse quickened. She stared at the screen, pretending not to notice the warmth of his fingers against hers. "Emma," he said softly. She turned. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" she asked, though she already knew. "This," he said, gesturing lightly between them, caring about someone again. The words were simple, but they carried weight. "You don't have to rush," she replied. "Not rushing," he said quickly. "That's what scares me. Try to keep this friendly, safe. But every time you leave, the apartment feels too quiet." Her heart pounded. He shifted. Closer, still careful. "I asked you to stay longer that night because I didn't want to be alone," he continued. "But now it's more than that. I look for you in the hallway. I listen for your door." She swallowed. "Daniel," he took a slow breath. "I don't just need your help anymore." Silence filled the room. "Then what do you need?" she whispered. His hand slid gently over hers, fingers warm and steady. "I need you." The words landed between them like something fragile and precious. Emma's first instinct was fear. Gosh, she had promised herself she would not become someone's comfort. During grief, she would not stand in the shadow of a woman who had been loved first. "I can't replace her," she said quietly. His jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed calm. "I'm not asking you to," he replied. "You're not a replacement. You're not a memory. You're new. You're real. When I'm with you, I'm not comparing. I'm just here." She searched his face for doubt and found none. "You make me want to live in the present again," he said. "Not in what I lost." Her chest ached at the honesty. She had been careful for months. Careful with her time, her kindness, her heart. But somewhere between grocery bags and candlelight, she had stepped over a line without realizing it. "Scared?" she admitted. "So am I," he said immediately. That surprised her. I don't know if I'm ready to feel this deeply again, he added, but I know I don't want to stop. The snow outside grew heavier, blanketing the city in silence. He lifted his free hand slowly and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. Their kiss was soft at first, almost uncertain. It carried grief, hope, fear, and longing all at once. It was not rushed. It was not desperate. It was careful, like two people stepping onto thin ice and realizing it could hold them. When they parted, their foreheads rested together. I don't want this to be temporary, he murmured. It won't be, she said, before doubt could interrupt her. From that night on, everything changed. They did not hide what was growing between them. They walked side by side to the cafe on weekends. They grocery shopped together. He waited up for her after late shifts. She left notes in his kitchen when she left early. But love after loss is not simple. One afternoon, Emma found him staring at an old photo on his phone. His expression was distant. She felt a sudden stab of insecurity. Is that her? She asked quietly. He nodded. Yeah. She forced a small smile. She looks kind. Schwaz, he said. The room felt tight. I don't want to compete with a memory, Emma admitted. He stood and walked toward her, placing the phone face down on the table. You're not competing, he said firmly. Grief doesn't disappear when love shows up. They just learn to exist together. She studied him. I loved her, he continued. That will always be true. But loving you doesn't take anything away from that. It's different. It's now. His honesty steadied her. Weeks passed. A relationship deepened. They shared stories they had never told anyone else. He spoke about the guilt he carried for surviving the accident. She spoke about the loneliness of her failed marriage. They did not try to fix each other. They simply listened. On a quiet Sunday morning, he stood behind her in the kitchen, arms wrapping around her waist as she made coffee. You've changed. Everything, he whispered into her hair. You changed it too? She replied. He turned her gently to face him. I don't want to just accept your help anymore, he said. I want to build something with you, something solid. Breath caught? What does that mean? She asked. Means I don't see you as a chapter, he said. I see you as the rest of the story. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Are you sure? She asked. He nodded. For the first time since the accident, I'm not afraid of the future. His certainty melted the last of her fear. They began making small plans. A weekend trip to Seattle, a shared bookshelf, a drawer in his bedroom cleared just for her things. It was not dramatic. It was steady. One evening, as they stood on the balcony watching the city lights flicker below, he squeezed her hand. I used to think my life ended on that highway, he said, but it didn't. It just paused. And now, she asked, now it feels like it's starting again. She leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his body against the cold air. For the first time in years, she did not feel like she was giving more than she received. She felt chosen. Still, as she lay awake, later that night in his arms, a quiet thought slipped through her mind. Love born from pain can be strong, but it can also be fragile. She turned her head and watched him sleep, his face peaceful in the dark. He had accepted her help. Then he had asked for more. And she had given it. The question that lingered in. The silence was simple but powerful. Would they be strong enough to protect what they had built when life tested them again? Outside, the snow began to melt. Inside, they held each other tighter, unaware of what the next season would bring.